Okay, so that was our last big creative project. It was a song about empowerment, of change, a way of celebrating all that has been achieved and will be achieved. So we have a little nickname for ourselves. We call ourselves the FDL, which stands for Fanny Defence League. Though in some circles we might change the first word to female. But I'm here today to try and persuade each and every one of you to join us, to end FGM and to end gender inequality in a generation. You know, it won't be easy, but I really believe that if we are determined enough and stubborn enough, then we can do it. So can I just start off by saying what an honor it is to be on a panel with Saida Warsi and Sigra Ahmed. I still can't believe, that I'm even here, so thank you for including me. So I'm Fahma Mohamed. I'm one of the 3 young trustees of Integrate Bristol. Although my face is probably the most known out of all the young people in the group, I can't emphasize enough that I didn't do this alone. There's over 100 of us. On the contrary, without the pioneering work of those that started the work 6 years ago, I wouldn't be here at all. And there's one other thing. Although we are most known for our work around female genital mutilation, we actually do work around inequality, not just FGM, but all forms of violence against women and girls, all forms of inequality. That includes educational inequality and other issues that the young people bring to us to discuss. But it's FGM that we are most known for, and I think that's partly because we feel so passionate about it, and also because, or at least it was so taboo to talk about it. And if there's one thing teenagers love, is doing something you're not supposed to do, to break the rules and set new boundaries. If you want a job done, tell the teenagers not to do it. But also, FGM is about vaginas, and my God, people will go to extraordinary lengths just to control the humble vagina. When you think that 51% of the population are proud possessors of one, and that 100% of human beings start life through one, I really don't understand why a beautiful, natural part of a woman's body is insulted, attacked, injured, or controlled. I don't understand why people associate vagina with impurity or to try to own it or control it. FGM and vaginoplasty, which I might add are totally linked, are all attempts to manipulate and control women, to suppress women. So it's hard to summarize the journey we've had. It's been a long and varied one. And yes, we have faced at times ferocious opposition, as almost all women do, if they try to fight for gender inequality and stand up to gender-based violence. But let me start at the beginning, because I think each step is important. So sometimes I have to pinch myself when I think of how far we've come, of how much things have changed since we started making waves 5 years ago. Our project manager, Lisa Zimmerman, started Integrate Bristol because of something that happened at our school. She was going to take a group of 12 girls to a horse riding trip. She was taken aside and told that 11 of the 12 girls had disclosed that they had FGM, literally 11 out of 12 girls in a school in the UK, in Bristol. And at the time, though everyone agreed it was a tragedy, that it was awful, the general view was that you could never do anything to change about it. Shortly after that, 4 girls in a local primary school disclosed that she'd had FGM the previous summer. Lisa told the school, but they didn't want to know. And at the time, nobody talked about it. Nobody wanted to get their hands dirty. So that's when it all started. There were only 4 girls in the first project, and decided they wanted to write poetry to express their views about FGM. It sounds a bit tame now, writing poetry, but back then, it was really scary for the girls, and they were really nervous. They were literally turning their computer screens off just so no one would come over to them and read what they've written. Other girls started becoming more curious, started asking more questions. So the next year, 12 of them worked over 5 months to make a drama documentary for radio that was featured on Radio 4's Woman Hour. The play, that's on our website if you'd like to hear it, is called Why, and the making of it, the girls wanted answers to all the questions they had. Why does it happen? Is it part of Islam? What does it do to the body? It was even nominated for an award, which was great. But back then, when we, or rather they, I still hadn't joined the project at the time, that's when we had our first backlash. So at the time, in 2010, our head teacher was a man. Quite a lot of men still feel challenged by FGM work. To be honest, many men even struggle with the vocabulary of vagina. you might not believe this, but there are doctors out there who don't even notice if a girl's missing her clitoris. So anyway, our head teacher, the poor guy, had a phone call from the police telling him that 75 irate elders were on their way to the school to protest against the project. 75 men are marching up to a school because 12 girls, with their mother's written permissions, wanted to learn more about a very horrible form of child abuse, one of the most fundamental forms of suppression of women. I'm sure you can as I'm sure you can imagine, our head, he was wetting himself. So I want to make a few points here. Firstly, in public, men claim that FGM is a women's business. Women do it, they say. They say they don't want it, but they also say they don't want girls talking about it or trying to stop it. Secondly, most of us young people absolutely categorically reject the concept of self-appointed, generally male elders who feel they are our voice. I mean, our work, my voice works fine as it is, and I have the right to speak for myself. So why authorities or large organizations consult so-called elders about the community is, we all believe, part of the problem. Yes, we may have a common ancestry, albeit a tenuous one, but we are individuals. Just because some dude comes from Africa doesn't mean he speaks for me or for my sisters or for my parents. So I know I'm ranting, but in the end, only about 35 of these so-called elders turned up at our school, no stamina. And the oddest part is, they genuinely thought they had the law on their side, which is why they spoke to the police in the first place. Yes, it was largely men, and that in some ways makes it easier. For example, when they threatened to protest with placards outside the school, we said, great, we'll get the press in, or we'll really help our cause. And in a split second, they had disappeared. I think most bullies are cowards deep down anyway. But I realized that this event is a feminist one, and I'm glad of that. I truly believe anyone with any intelligence is a feminist. I think people are expecting me to talk about men who have, in the past, tried to stop our work. But we do not hate men, and we are aware of the wonderful men out there who have stood alongside us. What we want is equality. But the thing is, ironically and very sadly, is not only men who oppose gender inequality. The person who led the backlash against us was a woman who worked at our school, and it's fair to say she was the spokesperson. And that is the sad reality. So many women become sucked into the patriarchal oppressive systems that ensure harmful cycles and suppression are maintained. They start to justify themselves and identify their position and power with the very cycles of patriarchy that suppress women in the first place. That isn't unique to Muslim women. None of the abuse is a Muslim issue. It doesn't happen just because you're a Muslim. It happens because you're a girl. It happens because you're a girl. And gender-based violence and abuse can happen to all women from all countries, all races, all socioeconomic groups. And FGM is, I'll say it to 100 times if I have to, the most fundamental expression of subjugation and control of women. I know I don't have much time, so I'm just going to skip what I was going to say. So more has happened, more change has come about under the current coalition than any other time in history. We're so grateful for that. There are some unbelievably wonderful, committed people in the coalition, and I know we will never come this far without them. But if there's a barrier, an unwilling player, we will come after them, whatever party they're in, which shows, like we did to Michael Gove. And it's so important that parties show their representative on ethics and principles, not on colour. That woman who tried to block our work, she's a local councillor now, and it's disgraceful. Her party knows, and they've done nothing to do with it. I'm sure it's not the only case. If you ask the young people I work with, they'd happily vote for a green Martian with purple spots if her ethics and honour are in place. It isn't about colour, it's about the person, and don't use race as a political card on our behalf. And for the record, we are not deprived, we are privileged, we hate labels, so those who get their votes by labeling people like me, you are doing us and women no service at all. But thank you very much.